Jason's quest for the golden fleece. Diogenes' quest for one honest man. Ponce de Leon's quest for the fountain of youth in Florida. That one's still going on, I think. Indiana Jones's quest for the lost ark. But outshining all of these famous mythical quests is the Magi's quest for the Christ child, born King of the Jews. We know the typical nativity scene, of course, drawn from Matthew and Luke. In the center, there's Jesus and the manger, surrounded by Mary and Joseph, flanked on one side by rustic shepherds and animals, and on the other by a very different group of exotic wise men, offering gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. That's the basic tableau, memorialized in myriad Christmas cards, paintings, models, and live portraits. As iconic as this picture is, however, it proves somewhat limited, especially for these Magi. For when we freeze these figures into a single still frame, we gloss over the long, hard journey that brought them to Bethlehem. We slight their remarkable quest. We need the film version, the motion picture of the Magi's expedition. Well, I can't show a movie, but perhaps I can fire our imaginations with T.S. Eliot's provocative poem, Journey of the Magi. A cold coming we had of it. Just the worst time of the year for a journey. And such a long journey, the ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter. And the camels galled, sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camelmen cursing and grumbling and running away, wanting their liquor and women. And the night fires going out, and the lack of shelters. The cities hostile and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. Christmas traveling doesn't always go smoothly, does it? The Magi had a long, cold, hard road to the Christ child. We don't emphasize it much in our sentimental Christmas spirit, but the truth is the wise men's story is a story of hardship and sacrifice. To be fair, we do focus on one dimension of sacrifice, the giving of those material possessions, our gold, our frankincense, and myrrh. Giving gifts as expressions of God's love to family, friends, and to strangers in need, nearby and far away, is a vital part of the wise men's legacy. The very first Virginia church I preached in a number of years ago was Scottsville Baptist Church, which I quickly learned was the home church of none other than Lottie Moon. There's a whole room dedicated to her and everything. For those who don't know, Lottie Moon is the closest thing Southern Baptists have to a saint, a dedicated missionary to the Far East who lent her name to the annual Lottie Moon Christmas offering for foreign missions. Countless Baptists through the years have given millions of dollars in Lottie Moon's name to spread the good news of Christ's love around the world. The wise men from the East would be very pleased, I think, and Lottie too. Yet, without discounting the importance of the Magi's gifts, these were true tokens of homage fit for a king, no doubt about that, but we should also not overplay their financial sacrifice. This is no widow's mite story. These wealthy travelers scarcely give their last ounces of gold, frankincense, and myrrh to Jesus. What did cost them dearly, however, was that long, cold, hard journey from Persia to Judea to give their presents directly to Jesus. The Magi sacrificed their time, their comfort, for the sake of a personal encounter with the Christ child. They could have simply sent their gifts by postal messengers. Mediterranean Express, MEDEX. 2 guys and a camel, well, who knows? Here's the serious point. They give themselves to Jesus along with their treasure. And also, here's the critical component of their self-giving that drives their whole experience. They give their attention to the signs God provides, particularly that brilliant star that leads them to Jesus. Now, of course, we all know about the star's starring role in the Christmas story, and it's why we put it atop our Christmas trees. Star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, guide us to that perfect light. We know about the star and the star giver and the goal of the star too, but we sometimes forget the star gazers. Someone had to notice the star, study the star, pursue the star, trust the star. Someone like these Magi. We have observed his star in the east and have come to pay him homage. Well, why did they see the star and not others? Was it some extraordinary epiphany just for them? Did they have some special 3D glasses so only they could see it? Doubtful. I think that the same star was there in the same sky for anyone to notice. They just happened to pay attention. Now, stargazing was their business. The Magi represented professional astronomers or astrologers, depending on how you evaluate them. Then, as now, they might be branded pseudoscientists at best, ungodly quacks at worst. The Bible typically views such foreign magic men as dangerous frauds, actually. But whatever their wider reputation, these Magi, in this case, took keen notice of this star the God of Israel provided for these suspicious Far Easterners of all people. And far from being armchair observers, they acted on what they saw by following the star. Other Magi, and there were a bunch of others at this time, practiced their arts and sciences to various ends. For that matter, no one has a monopoly on the sky. The stars are there for everyone to see. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the sky proclaims his handiwork. The psalmist exclaims, God's GPS. But why did these wise guys go the extra mile? Well, hundreds of extra miles to track the star. Although in plain sight for everyone, these guys were looking, hoping, studying, searching in a determined quest for meaning. They had their eyes peeled for whatever God or the universe might reveal. And they were blessed for paying attention. You know, it's hard to find what you're not looking for. It's hard to get where you're going if you're not heeding the signs. God provides clues of God's presence everywhere, every day. In nature, along with stars, you've got trees and mountains, flowers, fields, people, women, men, boys, girls, all wondrous internet parts of God's creation stamped with God's very nature. in Scripture, which the non-Jewish Magi knew little about, but Herod's chief priests and scribes sure did. They knew from Scripture that the Messiah was to be born in Bethlehem, though they seem unaware that the time had come. God continues to offer abundant natural and scriptural revelation for those with eyes to see, those who stop long enough from life's rat race and Twitter fest, who kick their minds in gear and pay attention. Sometimes the least likely seekers, foreign sky watchers, pay closer attention than the biblical scholars. Ouch. The wise men paid attention to the star. They paid attention to the star most of the time. But they also have a curious lapse in their attention, leading to disastrous consequences. For some reason, rather than continuing to follow the star all the way to Bethlehem, they stop first in Jerusalem, the center of King Herod's realm. And they start asking around, where is the newborn King of the Jews? This is not the kind of question a sitting king likes to hear, especially one as paranoid and violent as Herod. Some rival king in my realm? Who are we talking about? Our wise men are not being very wise at this moment. The Magi turned the stereotype of men not asking for directions on its head. They ask for directions when they don't need any. They've been given this wonderful OnStar tour guide that's led them brilliantly thus far. And then, right on the brink of their final destination, they forget the star and start gabbing about, can anyone help us here? Well, Herod wants to help. He shares the Bethlehem location, which he got from his priestly advisors, and he charges the wise men to go search diligently for the child and report back so he too can worship this new king. Yeah, that's exactly what Herod wants to do. Off our wise men go, following Herod's instruction now. Have they lost their minds? They set up from Herod's palace, and now, they decide to pick up the star again, which, well, sure enough, stops right over the Christ child's house. That's great. But why on earth didn't they follow the star the whole way? It hadn't gone anywhere. Why get Herod involved at all? Well, we might say that's just a little minor hiccup along the way. The Lord warned them not to go back to Herod. Apparently, without this warning, they would have gone back and disclosed Jesus' precise location. But in any case, they left town without informing Herod. Crisis averted. All's well that ends well. For them, maybe. But not for Jesus and his family, who had to flee to Egypt to escape Herod's jealous wrath, and certainly not for the thousands of innocent infants who did not get away, but fell under Herod's sword in his maniacal fit of terror. Lapses in attention can be devastating. We want our surgeons, our pilots, our accountants to keep their minds on the job, their eyes on the ball at all times. In the lives God has called us to lead, we need to keep our eyes trained on the stars, the lights that God provides for our guidance, and not allow ourselves to slip into blind alliances with the self-absorbed, murderous Herods that too often plague our world. Ultimately, Though not quickly enough, the Magi did recognize that Herod's way was not God's way. They went home by another way. Well, another poet captures this point beautifully, albeit in more folksy language than T.S. Eliot's. James Taylor put it this way. Those magic men, the Magi, some people call them wise, Oriental, even kings, well, anyway, those guys, they visited with Jesus. They sure enjoyed their stay, but then warned in a dream of King Herod's scheme, they went home by another way. Yes, they went home by another way. Home by another way. Maybe me and you can be wise guys too, and go home by another way. We can make it another way. Safe home, as they used to say. Keep a weather eye to the chart on high, and go home another way. Steer clear of royal welcomes, avoid a bit to do. A king who would slaughter the innocents will not cut a deal for you. Oh, he really, really wants those presents. He'll comb your camel's fur till his boys announce they found trace amounts of your frankincense, gold, and myrrh. It's best to go home by another way. Home by another way. Got this far through a lucky star, but tomorrow is another day. We can make it another way. Safe home, as they used to say. Keep a weather eye to the chart on high, and go home another way. There are two ways to go. Herod's way, the jealous way, the scheming way, the manipulative way, the violent way, the thieving way, the narcissistic way, consumed by self-advancement and power politics. But there's also the Magi's way, most of the time, the giving way, the sacrificing way, the attentive way, most of the time, the faithful way consumed with seeking God's light gloriously revealed in Jesus the Christ. In this new year, let's be true people of wisdom. Let's not allow Herod to rob us of the true meaning of the season. It's about giving, not taking. Serving, not ruling. Loving God and neighbor with all our beings, and not using others to promote and protect ourselves. Paying attention to our Creator's will for our lives, and not charting our own self-indulgent affairs. Let's go home. Let's go home this new year by another way.